Hey everyone, it's the Miserable Movie Man back once again with another video. So I posted a quick spoiler-free review of Fantastic Four First Steps. This video will be a little bit more in-depth and will contain spoilers, so be aware if you haven't seen the film, go watch the film first and then come back and check out this review. But without further ado, let's get into it. I thought Fantastic Four First Steps was a decent attempt. I certainly preferred it to the last iteration that they did of Fantastic Four. But maybe I thought the first version with Ewan Griffith and Jessica Alba was comparable, at least. This one has more of a Marvel touch to it, more of a Marvel sort of flair. They definitely were trying to go with less of establishing the characters, but more just throwing us into the universe. So backstory was told in kind of flashbacks. This wasn't an origin movie. This was really a setup for the big Marvel films that are going to be coming out soon. So this was really the launching board and the platform for Marvel to try and get audiences interested in going to the cinema again and seeing good Marvel movie content. Now, Thunderbolts was okay. Captain America Brave New World disappointed. But I thought this film, as I said, was enjoyable to watch. Not brilliant for me by any stretch of the means, but also, not terrible. I think they did a lot of things okay, and I think they did some things well. So let's start with the casting. I thought the casting was decent. I thought that my highlight for me was Pedro Pascal's Reed. I thought he was a really great Reed Richards. I thought he was better than Ewan Griffith, and I think the way that he had Reed as cold and calculating and sort of matter of fact, emotionless in some ways, was portrayed brilliantly by him. Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, I got mixed bag feelings for her. She had some elements of the character. I mean, in the comics, Sue has been, sort of the more confident one, and people used to wonder how Reed managed to win her heart. But in this film, and again, spoilers, she's pregnant with Franklin. She's really more of a mother in this film, and just going from crisis to crisis, it starts off pretty quick, and she gets thrown in the deep end. So some of the elements of Sue's character, some of the sort of wittiness, the suaveness, the slickness, that was missing a little bit for me. But again, the film didn't really call for it, and she's the one kind of glue that holds the four of them together. We got a little bit of that in some instances, but not too much of it. I'm a bit surprised by the reaction to Yvonne Moss-Bachrach as Ben Grimm. I thought that casting was just okay for me. People are loving it. They're saying he's a brilliant Ben Grimm. But, I actually thought Michael Chiklis was way better. I thought they got that character much better in that original Fantastic Four film. Not to say that he wasn't good. He was okay for me. I think they didn't really delve into enough the conflict that Benjamin Grimm has in terms of being the Thing. There were a little bit of that with him interacting with the kids and pining in terms of whether he can love someone after Natasha Lyonne's character. But again, he seemed to be very well adjusted, very confident and sort of happy in himself to some degree, versus the tormented, am I a man or a monster version that really was more prevalent in the comics, at least when I was a kid growing up. So I thought Ben Grimm was okay. I thought Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm was decent. He reminded me a little bit of Chris Evans. I thought Chris Evans was better in the role, but again, I think he did a good job. I would put him, probably second after Pedro Pascal as Reed. His Johnny was, we didn't get so much of the playboy Johnny. We got more of the sort of carefree Johnny, and we got that Johnny that is there to provide a bit of light relief, to provide some exposition. So again, we didn't really get too much into these characters. I think the most we got into was Reed, and that was great, but I would have liked to have seen more sort of focus and development on who these people are, what their fears are, what their strengths are, what their sort of character traits are. And again, we got a bit of that, but not a lot. I mean, the film, pacing-wise, is pretty quick. It's just under 2 hours, which is rare for a Marvel film these days, but it flows along quite well and really just throws us in there with all of the sort of background stuff and how the Fantastic Four live before they get, completely shocked and confronted by Galactus and what's going on with the Silver Surfer. So in terms of pacing, it ran fast. I thought there were the scenes at the start with them as a family were nice. I mean, this is a alternate timeline. This is a '60s style universe, even though they have things like Fantastic Cars and Herbie's in there. Great to see those two things, by the way. I thought Marvel handled that well. And in a similar way to Guardians of the Galaxy, they didn't try to portray anything as being silly or untoward. I mean, the fashions are dated, the TV is dated, the inventions are, at least from the Fantastic Four's building, Baxter building, and what they have, they're kind of pseudo modern. They have like a 60s aesthetic, but with modern twists on it. So all of that visual imagery and the sort of design element, I thought was great. I really loved seeing all of that. I mean, even some of the clothes they wore were pretty cool. It's nice to see the Thing in regular gear and wearing a hat. You've seen it in the comics, and in the comics it kind of looks normal, and here it looks normal as well. I like the fact they didn't really care to explain any of this stuff to the audience. They just went with it. This is the universe, this is who they are, and we will just throw ourselves right in there. Having them as a sort of sole heroes on the world was a bit interesting. You do see their villains at the start with Mole Man and others, but I thought that it was a bold choice not to have too many other villains and heroes in the world. But that leads to the Fantastic Four being the sole protectors of Earth and addressing the whole of Earth through one press conference in New York, saying we will protect you once Galactus' threat occurs. Seeing them have sort of sit down dinners and having their lives was good in some ways, but again, the thing I remember about the FF and reading the FF, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the comics. I read them, but this is the 80s and 90s we're talking. But the thing I remember the most about them was they were a bickering family. They loved each other, they had each other's back, but they would always get into bickering arguments. Johnny and the Thing would get on each other's nerves. Reed would say something that annoyed everyone. And I really didn't get much of that. They seem to be very caring, well-adjusted, there for each other family. And in some ways, maybe that was a good choice to have that family dynamic where we can sort of all root for them and it makes us feel comfortable. In other ways, again, I would have liked to have seen more bickering. I would have liked to have seen more tension. I would have liked to have seen more, Reed, what you're doing, Johnny making silly mistakes, Sue chastising people, and Ben getting angry. Touched upon in small areas, but definitely not developed enough for me. Let's get on to some of the other folks in here. We had, obviously, the big bad, Galactus. I thought he was well voiced. I thought the voice was decent, and I thought, the way that they set him up was good. Silver Surfer turning up and telling people. I think the Silver Surfer herself, so, the Shalabal incarnation, was okay. Again, I thought the original film did it better, but in terms of the look was a little bit, the CGI was a little bit, I don't know, wonky for me, a bit ropey at times, especially with the Surfer. Having Johnny fly up into space without being able to breathe, it was a bit weird, and then just falling back to the Earth. So there were some things there that kind of made me think of it. Oh, okay, that's not too great, or a bit weird, or that doesn't make sense. Just throwing Galactus in as a devourer of worlds, no question, who's this guy, what is he doing, just having everyone panic, was a choice that I understood, but I don't think it worked that well. You really wanted more build-up to Galactus. You really wanted more horror and threat. And yeah, the Fantastic Four go to talk to him, and it doesn't go well, and they have to come back. They manage to escape, of course. They escape somehow. And they get back to Earth before Galactus comes over to have the real showdown. But I thought just the way they just accepted everything, and the way that the world didn't seem to sort of wonder what is going on. I mean, maybe there's been enough crazy stuff happening since the Fantastic Four appeared with all the villains that they just see someone almost the size of a planet coming down to, I guess eat them as normal. But there wasn't enough, I think, questioning for me that was thrown into that part of the film. And Galactus himself, while looking great, comic accurate, brilliant, the voice was well done. And he had, Ralph Ineson did inject enough menace in there and calling people bugs. And I know that Fantastic Four have to beat Galactus. I get it. They've beaten him in the comics. But in order to do that, they really had to nerf him. They had to chump him. They had to demonstrate him as this all-powerful godly being, which he is, and then have 4 superheroes take him down, albeit with a bit of help from Surfer, of course. You knew that was going to happen. That seemed weak to me. I wasn't a fan of the way they chumped him. Sue, even if Sue's an Omega level mutant shouldn't be able to stand against Galactus. He's a cosmic entity. I get that when mothers have concerns for their children, they can develop another level of power, and real life cases have happened, of course. And so that premise was okay, but it was executed in a way that was a little bit rushed and made me question a lot of things. I think that they could have had Sue having those powers with more stuff going on from Reed and Johnny and Ben, right? This was a way that they should have all been working together to fight Galactus, instead of Sue just showing how powerful she is and taking on a deity and an entity that she shouldn't be able to do that to. So that didn't sit too well with me. I thought that was a little bit cheap and a bit quick and, a bit forced to move the plot along. Again, going back to the way that they helped each other. I mean, Reed is the guy that comes up with everything, and all of a sudden, before Galactus appears, he's developed teleportation, which is amazing, and gets no fanfare in the world. But then, after Galactus shows up and they're fighting him, I really wanted to see more of a plan of them all working together. Yeah, Ben kind of knocks a building over, and Johnny's trying to flame things. But it'd be cool if Reed could come up with a plan where they're all working together and coming up with some ingenious, highly intelligent way that they can use their powers to defeat Galactus, in more imaginative fashion. Reed's brains were well used in the film, and at one point Galactus picks him up and stretches him to the point where I think he's going to snap him in half. But other than that, his powers were not used in any real tangibly effective way. It would have been really cool to see him use his powers in a way that, really hurt Galactus, or at least have a way that, as I said, come up with a way where him, Ben, Johnny, and Sue can all work together. I didn't get that sense towards the end. They were just a little bit more individual in nature. And if you want to know how to use Reed's powers properly, if you want to know the extent of how cool they can be, if you want to know how powerful you can be as Mr. Fantastic using those powers, just read Morrison's run on JLA and the way that he treats Plastic Man. That alone should have been dipped into for the use of Reed in this film. And I think that would have been a really cool way to showcase how powerful Reed can be. So the use of their powers was a bit underwhelming for me. And of course, once Galactus is defeated and Shalla-Bal helps, we lead into the sort of end scenes where the Fantastic Four are going to probably come and seek help with our Earth. Throughout the film, you can see Latveria is strangely absent, and you know where that's going. And at the end, where Doom just manages to sneak in the Baxter building with all its fortifications and is chatting to Franklin, that's pretty interesting. I thought the plot of Galactus trying to use Franklin as his successor was a bit weird. I mean, baby in peril is one thing, and we've seen that in some films, but Galactus trying to find the baby and see the baby. Oh, the baby's not here anymore. Oh, he's over there now. Let me go get the baby. This isn't Ghostbusters 2, which, by the way, is a film I absolutely love, but, it had a bit of a feel to that where Galactus was maybe selling himself short by going after a baby, even if he thinks the baby can fulfill his quest to give up what he's doing. And having Johnny be smart as well and interpret the tapes, because Reed doesn't have time for that was a necessary, but I guess not that essential plot point. And it kind of leads into him falling in love with the Silver Surfer, but is Johnny really that much of a charlatan that he falls in love with alien women all in silver? I don't know. It wasn't developed well enough for me. The pain of Shalla-Bal choosing worlds to save her own and save her daughter was a nice MacGuffin to throw in there. Kind of saw that coming in order for her to be on their side. Even with a small amount of the power cosmic, you shouldn't be able to defeat Galactus like that, but it is what it is. So again, they introduced plot points and devices to move the plot along, but in most instances for me, they didn't make a full amount of sense or weren't handled too well or were just thrown in hastily just to serve the ends of the writers. So those are the things I didn't like so much about it. But as I said, the casting was good, the visuals were good, the set design was great. I liked all of those things. The pacing was decent as well. Having Franklin age quickly and sort of the trial and tribulations of parenthood, that was again a bit rushed for me. And Franklin's powers, let's see where they end up, because we all know how powerful he is in the comics. He's insane. So that will be an interesting one to see how they raise Franklin. I thought him giving birth, on the ship was, kind of just didn't need to do that, really. They could have landed first and then she get rushed to hospital. I get that maybe they want to say Franklin was born in space and he's got power cosmic in him as well or whatever. And then it leads to the image of Sue walking out with a baby. But having Ben and Johnny there as she gives birth, giving birth as they're landing, is all kind of hooey for me. Hooey's a word that not enough people use anymore, and I want to bring it back. So that was all hooey. But overall I thought this film did a decent job of introducing the characters and having the pace kick along. As I said, there were things I didn't like too much about it, certain flaws. But it's all a big setup film. It's all a big introduction for the Fantastic Four joining the regular Marvel Universe and also setting up Doctor Doom for Doomsday and for setting up the big one, Secret Wars, which I think Matt Shakman is doing. If I'm not mistaken, he's doing Secret Wars and maybe Doomsday. So let's see how that ends up. I think all of his directorial choices were good. I really hope that the plot and the characters are well enough developed for us to get a lot more of the things that I thought were missing from this film in both Secret Wars and Doomsday. So we'll see how it pans out. The end of the film where they're putting the baby into the car, I thought was pretty cool. That was a nice, funny touch. And then the cartoon at the end, which was again drawn in the mold of these four folks, but animated in the style of the old 60s cartoon, which I had missed. Actually, I'm not that old, but it was pretty popular, I think, when it was on. It was a nice little touch too. So all in all, as I said, a decent film. Not brilliant, but not bad. I think I still prefer Superman over this film. I gave this like a 6.5 out of 10 for me. Some things I enjoyed, some good performances, some nice visuals, good pacing. But on the flip side, I think the character development was a bit weak. The way that they use their powers could have been improved. And there were a lot of sort of interesting MacGuffin or plot choices to drive the story that I didn't fully agree with. A bit of hooey. Again, let's use that word again, hooey. Oh, one final thing before I go. Mole Man, the guy who played Stingray in Cobra Kai, Paul Walter Hauser, I did not think he was that good in the role. And evacuating all of New York into the subterranean tunnels very quickly. Again, we see it. It's there. It helps the plot along. But hooey. Didn't make a lot of sense. Can't be done that quickly. It was very, very strange. But there you have it. That's my review. That's a bit more of an in-depth spoiler review of Fantastic Four First Steps. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did I miss anything? Do you agree or disagree with what I said? Have you seen it? And what did you think? As usual, please like, share, and subscribe to help support the channel. And catch you next time.